evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming for tonight's College Information Night. My name is Rhonda Belaski, and I'm one of the counselors here at the senior high school. Mr. Mike Hambrook is also here with me tonight. He's also another Nash counselor. The way this evening's going to run is that we're going to talk just briefly about the North Allegheny way that we like to do college application processes. And then we're going to turn it over to our college reps to talk about their admission qualifications and things that they look for in prospective students. I'd like to welcome our panel today. Mr. Robert Reed is here from Ohio State University. Anna Tall is next to him from the University of Notre Dame. Amy Smith-Dill, Billy, is from Washington and Jefferson. And then we have Brianne Donahue from the University of Pittsburgh. And finally, we have Megan McHugh from IUP. Just to give us an idea of who's here this evening, if you are a freshman, would you please raise your hand? All right, how about sophomores? All right, juniors? And then seniors. All right, so we have a nice representation of all of the years. For those of you who are juniors and seniors, we wanted to let you know a little bit about the counseling staff at Nash. So you know, let me do this first, sorry. To go through tonight's presentation, we're going to start and look at the college application timeline. We do it in seasons for holidays just to kind of give you things to remember them by. We're also going to give you some testing information as well as letters of recommendation, when you should start thinking about asking and how many you need and who the best people are to ask. We're going to also look at some financial aid information. And then we did a senior survey to try to give some seniors some advice on the college process. We'll also give you some resources, and then we're going to listen to our admissions reps. And at the final part of this evening, we will do question and answer. Hopefully everyone grabbed a black folder in the back. Inside your folders, you will find some relevant articles that we have found that we thought would be of interest to you surrounding the college search. We also have question cards, those little note cards. If throughout the evening you have a question that you would like to ask the reps, if you would please write that down. Mr. Hambrook and I will be walking throughout this evening gathering those so that we can ask the reps at the end. And finally, we have evaluation forms in there. Before you leave, if you would please fill those out and leave them on the table as you go. That will help us plan next year's event. Okay, now we're to the counselors. Now this again is for Nash, our juniors and seniors. For those with the last names that begin with A to DOT, you have Mrs. Rosado. Students with the last name DOU to KR, you have me, Mrs. Belaski. Mr. Hambrook has students with the last names KS to P. Mr. Thompson has students with Q to STI, as well as those seniors with special education. And Mrs. Buechner has students STJ to Z, and juniors that have IEPs. Mr. Hambrook is going to talk a little bit about the timeline of applications.
Okay, we'll just follow along. Again, we're using the holidays as some signposts for time to get things done. Halloween, looking at financial aid PIN number. Thanksgiving is the time to make sure we get all the applications done, the materials in. Those who are looking at early decision and action definitely need to look at the deadline so they make sure they have things in on time. The seniors, testing, we could talk about ACT and SAT testing. We have a timeline we talk to our seniors about. It starts in the junior year. PSATs are going on next week. And so that's the kind of the beginning part, but it goes all the way through to getting your testing done, and all testing should be done basically in the fall. The winter break, you should hear back from early decision and early action schools. New Year's Day will be fast over with our financial aid and financial situation. Valentine's Day, that should be finished and turned in. St. Patrick's Day, looking to here, for the regular decision schools. And April Fool's Day, students will get their packages from the school. So that's kind of a rough timeline to look. It's not, precise, but it's a good markers kind of to look at when you're trying to get things done. Okay. Let's talk about the applications. Pitt and Penn State are no longer mailing, so we do these electronically. So basically, what the student needs to do is what we call the Holy Grail, get that yellow transcript card in. We have a small yellow form that talks about our seniors about. We showed them what it looked like. We didn't get them all in yet. But we really need to have those. That's what releases the transcript. So once they turn a transcript card in for Pitt and Penn State and get their application set, that's pretty much a done deal. Everything else goes electronically. So it's a real clean process. Everything's timely. So we like it. I like working that way. I've been here long enough to have been through the 100% paper thing. This is a lot better way to do it. So the students have to turn in a card for each school. So we'll be after them about that. The thing we don't do is send test scores. So students have to send in their ACT and SAT test scores. So we do we'll do the thing with the card. So the card's pretty simple. It's self-explanatory, but a lot of times they'll sit and talk to us about it. It's pretty simple, but it's the thing that they have to do. Once they get the card in, get that application set from home, everything else is done with.
Also, the other applications that are online are the common application and those that use send.edu. If you are completing an application online, it will tell you if it does use the send.edu or the common application. And as Mr. Hamburg said, no matter what, whether we email them or upload them or mail them by the U.S. mail, students do have to release their transcript to each school, so they do have to fill out a yellow form. This slide is for any other application that is not a common app, send.edu or Pitt or Penn State. Most often they are mailed, and again, the first part says that they must still complete that yellow transcript release card. And then they will have to provide a stamped addressed envelope with that yellow card so that we may send the transcript via the U.S. mail. And as Mr. Hamburg said, they'll have to request SAT and ACT test scores through the website. You send all test scores online. And then we just ask if a student has a deadline coming up, that they allow us 10 school days to complete the transcript upload and letters of recommendation that we may have to write.
Just talking about the testing. The first thing is the PSAT, and again, I think they're due one time this week to get them in. The test is on the 18th, so we need to have that in. It's a real important thing to do for all people planning on going to college. Number one, you get a practice test for the SAT, and that's pretty important. You don't want to go into an SAT blind, basically not knowing what the test is all about. So the PSAT is a good practice test. Also, the scores are sent for national merit status, so that's something that you want to do. Some students are maybe not wanting to do an extra test, but it's not extra. I think it's almost mandatory. So if you plan on going to college, it's your first real test at things that are testing off for college. So, we try to get our students to take that. It's a must to do. The SAT, just talking a little bit about it, it's an aptitude test. We kind of measure the test in width and height. The SAT, as it is right now, is a height test. It's an aptitude test. It tests your aptitude ability. So it's a good test. It has a few different things to it, but it's definitely necessary. As far as number of tests, we look at 2 to 3 tests. Some of our students score really well on the first test and don't need to take another one. Statistics show about the third test, scores start flatlining and they don't get any better. So a lot of students come to us the 4th and 5th time when they take the test. For the most part, the first 3 is about the time that they see improvement. After that, it pretty much flatlines. So they do have subject tests. The different individual schools, and these guys may talk about that a little later, will maybe request some subject tests. Most schools don't, but if your school has that, you would need to take some subject tests also. The ACT is a little different test. It's an achievement-based test. Basically tests students on what they learned in school. So some students do a lot better on ACT because of the format. I think the tests are kind of all heading in that direction. The changes that are coming to the SAT make it more similar to an ACT test. So over the years, we've seen some students that have trouble with SAT get a little better on ACT. ACT is a little bit more of a national test. It's more out of the Midwest, and so a lot of southern schools and western schools are looking at that. Eastern schools are looking at SAT because of where it's from. So we want our students to take each test. As far as ACT goes, normally first test is pretty good, maybe two, never more than that. So that's something that we need to look for. As far as getting these tests out to the college, the students do have to send that information. So they need to do it on the test. Normally there's 4 free schools, and then after that you have to pay. So make sure that your students get their tests and applications done.
Students often ask us when they should take the ACT or the SAT. We do recommend that all juniors take the PSAT in October and then start to take the SATs in January of their junior year. If they take the SATs in January, then they have the opportunity to receive them back and then decide if they want to take them again in the spring or the summer. Hopefully and ideally, they would be done with their testing by the end of their junior year. Also for ACT, we like to see them take them in the spring of their junior year as well. Being that it's an achievement test, we like to see them have as much of their junior year education as they can before they take them. Now, we do have some seniors that will take the SAT or the ACT that first time that they're offered. I think SAT is offered in October, as is, I think SAT is this weekend, and then ACT is October 25th. Some of our seniors are doing that, and you just have to be very careful if your schools have early, if you're doing an early action or an early decision, because they have deadlines of November typically, and you just want to make sure that your school will take those lead tests. As for letters of recommendation, if you are applying to any schools on the common application, you will typically need 2 academic teachers and 1 school counselor. So your counselor will write you your 1 letter, and then we recommend that you have 2 teachers in an academic class. If you know what you're going to major in or the area that you're going to study, we would highly recommend that you get letters of recommendation from those area teachers. And what you're looking for when you ask your teachers is that person who can really talk about who you are as a student, how you participated, that you gave forth great effort, because they also, not only do they have to write you a letter of recommendation, but in the common application, they have to rate you according to your writing, how you are as a student. So it's important that you pick somebody that really does know your child as a student. Make sure you ask early, because a lot of teachers are bombarded with these letter requests, and this is something that they do outside of their job. So to give them the opportunity to really take some time, think about how they want to write your letter, and then have the time to write the letter is most appropriate. Some teachers will ask for a resume or a recommendation form for you to fill out. That just helps them know what you do outside of their classroom. So if you don't have a resume, it's a good idea to start thinking about what you can put on it. You can put on extracurricular activities, volunteerism, if you have a job in the community, anything like that, plus awards and recognitions. And definitely develop a relationship with your teachers and your counselor. Do you have a question? Yes.
Does it have to be a junior or senior teacher that they have actively, or could it be someone that they had as a sophomore that they really?
The question was, does it have to be a junior or senior teacher? I'm interested in what the reps have to say, but we typically tell them that we would like them as recent as possible, but it's not unheard of to have a 9th or 10th grade teacher if they really knew them and could represent them well. But we'll ask them later to see if they concur. And then also, I know that oftentimes when students come up to Nash, they'll say, well, I never knew my counselor, I never really needed my counselor. It's a little bit different at Nash because we do write a letter for almost every student. So it's very important that we get to know you. You don't have to have a problem. You don't have to need to see us in order to come see us. We just want to talk to you, learn about you, get to know you, so that when we write our letters, we're writing really thorough, from the heart letters. So please encourage your students to get to know us. And all of your counselors, really, not just Nash.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think the best way to do that, if you haven't had a chance to get to know your counselor, is once you do that recommendation sheet, what I do is I like to try to meet with my students and just talk to them about the items on the sheet and just ask them questions. Usually it ends up in, who are you? For some unknown reason, a lot of kids always talk about what you want to be. They're really questioning things or they're not certain. So that gives us a good opening to say, well, who are you? And how do you make a decision on what you want to do for your career? And once we start talking about that type of stuff, everything kind of opens up and the letter becomes so much better because I've sat back and looked at the sheet and I'll think about the conversation I had with the student. And then the stuff starts pouring into me. Oh, I can put this in the letter that will make this student look better for the school. So I think if, students are a little, sometimes they look at us like we're the disciplinarians, but we're not. We're the people that are trying to help them answer questions for the future. So to be able to have conversations with them about who they are and what they want to do with their life makes this letter come to life. So that's my suggestion that, if you can get your kids to just come in and set an appointment to sit and talk over the pink sheet, that's the recommendation sheet, usually everything opens up after that. So, okay. Just talking about financial aid, the FAFSA is a free application. That needs to be done in a timely fashion. It doesn't come until January 1 of senior year, basically, so that's when that process happens. No matter what your financial status is, you need to do it, and it's something that lets you know financially what your obligations are, what schools can help you with. So we have that. I think it comes out to you guys at home also. So if you're seniors, you probably be seeing that coming through pretty quickly. The financial rate night is on January 15th. Very important place to be. So plan on coming back to see us then. It'll be very informative. Answer a lot of the questions that you have about the financial rate situation. 6 to 8 on January 15th here in Robertson.
All right, really quickly, we did ask seniors, what advice do you have for future seniors about the college application process? Some things that they shared with us that we wanted to share with you is that they suggest that you start early. Begin filling out applications and looking up essay prompts over the summer. Typically, they're available August 1st of your senior year. So you can get a jump start on them starting in August just to look at them and see what they're going to be asking. We do tell all students, no matter what their plan is as far as what decision they're going to do, to be done with your college applications by Thanksgiving of your senior year. That way you have everything in on time and you can kind of just relax and focus on your studies. Visit the schools before you spend time, energy, and money on applications. Sometimes students just apply to a ton of schools and then they say, well, I'll just wait till I see who accepts me and then I'll go tour. We really recommend that you go tour before you decide to apply. Junior year, we tell all of our juniors that that's a great year to explore, to look at all the colleges, do some tours. And I know it's probably not the best as an educator to say this, but I do like when students go during the school year because they get to see what it's like when students are on campus. Summer tours are great, but I just think it's a different feel once the students are there. So don't tell anybody else. Don't apply to too many schools. It's certainly a personal choice how many your student is going to apply to, but we recommend between 5 and 6, so just as a ballpark. Pay attention to your deadlines. That includes application, scholarship, as well as interview. And don't discount any given school. You may think you want a small school, but just try it. Go on a tour of one to see what define early action. Early action is a little bit different. It still has that November 1st or November 15th deadline, but there's no contract. It's not binding. So if any school offers early action, that means that you can apply by November 1st or November 15th and typically know if you've been accepted by the end of that calendar year. They also suggest after submitting applications, stop worrying and don't check those college blogs. And call your admission reps. They're very willing to help answer your questions, and I call them all the time, and they're very helpful and willing to help, for sure.
Yeah, this is just information on scholarships. We have a couple sites here, but another place to find out information in our office, our secretary keeps up to date on that. So www.fastwork.com, you can read there, and the other. That's the way to do it. As far as looking for things, local it tends to be better than national. The local would have a certain number of people looking at these different sites and looking for scholarship information, whereas if you look at the national sites, you're pretty much dealing with everybody in the country, so there's a wide variety of people, many more people looking. So look around. There's a lot of local things. There's a lot of really obscure ways to get money. You have to be willing to check out and be adamant about talking to our people and some of the sites about that information. As far as our site, we're on Facebook. It's definitely a one-way street. You get information from us. We don't get it from you. So they click like, it will just provide tons of information. Basically everything that we can do in our office and some of the things that are online, all the deadlines, all the different postings we had today, the test sites, the dates, everything. That's all on Facebook. So some of our students like to go on Facebook. Right? You can definitely use that to your advantage as a parent to get information. So they click like on that, we'll get some information to you guys that way. Again, our counseling website is www.northallegheny.org. You'll select NASH or MEI, whichever school you're at, and click school counseling. Tons of information is on there. Not to be rude to you kids, parents, a lot of times you have to sidestep your kids to get information. I was a parent, I had kids here, I was a counselor. I still have to sidestep to get information, so if you want to look on the site, you can get all the same information that we're talking about tonight, plus a lot more detailed things. The junior senior checklist is something that we give to our students a lot of time, and it ends up in the bottom of the book bag, but it's a guide through the school year. So many questions that the students come and ask us is already in their hands when we do these presentations or we give these sheets out. But I was 16 and 17 too, I don't remember what I did with my stuff. So you can get that checklist, you can check these things and know what's going on. Again, with VA information, SAT, ACT, AP registration, all that information is right there on the website. If you get on the website, it's going to give you a lot of information.
And just to reiterate, we would love for you all to get to know your counselor. We're a resource for you if you're not sure of what to major in, where you'd like to go to school. We have resources in our office that we can help guide you. Please get to know us, and this information is also in your folder in your packet. So if you need to get a hold of us, our emails are on here as well as our phone numbers. So we're going to now turn it over to our college reps. They're each going to talk a little bit about their school and schools like theirs. And as they're speaking, and if you come up with any questions, please use those cards. Mr. Hamburg and I will be walking around throughout the presentation and collect them, and then we'll ask them at the end. So would you like to start?
Okay. Good evening. There we go. College reps, we love interaction. So, well, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Want to thank Mrs. Gillespie and Mr. Sandberg for having us here this evening. We're very happy to be here, be able to present information to you. We decided we're going to be playing it by ear a little bit, but we have an agenda up here, so we're going to go down. Don't know if you have it. No, so you don't have it, but we do. And so we're going to talk about the application process, go down the line, talk about characteristics of admitted students, talk about the financial aid process, and then open it up for questions. Also, I think that we'll probably all try to be fairly succinct, just so that way we can get to that question portion, which is probably going to be the more exciting part, the hearing us just talk about our schools. But my name's Rob Reed. I represent Ohio State, or as people up here like to remind me, the Ohio State. And we're a large public research institution. And so most of the schools in the Big Ten outside of Northwestern are very similar to Ohio State. So the way I sort of describe it is, if you're looking at a school like Ohio State, we're very similar to Penn State, only we cost a lot more money because your tax dollars are not going to our school. So there's now a state surcharge. Otherwise, we're going to match up and be very similar in terms of majors, programs, and opportunities offered to a student. If you're looking at the number of applications that we receive, Ohio State's a selected admissions institution. We're receiving more applications than we have space. Last year, we received about 44,000 applications. We admitted about 19,000 students to enroll a freshman class of about 7,000. To give you North Allegheny's numbers, we had 69 students apply for this school, 38 were admitted, and had about 13 students, or had 13 students enroll this past autumn, which are pretty standard or pretty typical numbers for North Allegheny. Ohio State's a Common App member, so, and we're Common App exclusive. So you'll apply through the Common App. There is an Ohio State supplement that you would fill out that has some Ohio State specific questions. The application's available August 1st. November 1st is our early action priority deadline. For us, the early action deadline would not impact your admissions decision, but it can have a significant impact on merit-based aid, our honors and scholars program, our moral scholars program, and for students who are looking to be directly enrolled into our College of Engineering. February 1st is our final deadline. Don't worry about February 1st, just think November 1st. In terms of the process, what we're looking for with an application, looking for the application, letter of recommendation, test scores, and your high school transcript sent to us. With the testing information, we'll take either the ACT or the SAT. It doesn't matter to us which test you send. We look at them both equally. The tests do need to come to us directly from the testing agency, and we need at least one test with the writing section. We do not look at the SAT 2 subject tests, so sometimes people are like, Rob, if I send those in, will you look at them? No. You can take them, but we do not use them for anything in the process. Let's see, I guess that's characteristics of an admitted student. So have the test scores sent to us directly from the testing agency. Test scores need to be in our office by the deadline date. So for example, we'll take this Saturday's SAT. If you are a senior and taking it, and put Ohio State down as a school to send it to, we should have it by November 1st. The October 25th ACT will not be used for the November 1st deadline because it comes in afterwards. And that's something to check with at various colleges and universities, because as you'll find out, we all like to do things slightly differently. As I said, we're early action, but once we start sending out decisions, we send them out on a rolling basis. Students who apply early action will find out by mid-January, or they'll receive a decision by mid-January. All of our decisions go out by the end of March. We highly encourage students to visit campus, but we don't take that into consideration in the application process, and we don't do interviews, which I think is pretty standard for large institutions, just with not being able to do that. And students, the only way you can apply is by applying online. And with our deadlines, since most things are sent electronically, for most of them it is the date that items need to be submitted, but if something is being mailed, it is a postmark deadline. And I think that's everything for this part, for me.
All right. Good evening, my name is Anna Tall, and I'm a representative for the University of Notre Dame. As I've been scanning the crowd, I actually see some familiar faces from the college fair earlier this week. So I know this has been a college-heavy week for many of you students as well. Just kind of an overview about the University of Notre Dame. We are a highly selective institution. We are located in sunny South Bend, Indiana, about a 7.5-hour drive or so from here. Some claim you can make it 6.5, but we can talk after about that. The University of Notre Dame is a Catholic institution. This past year, we welcomed about 2,000 students from all 50 states, all around the world. We're typically receiving applications from all over. So we had around 18,000 applications for this past application cycle. We were able to offer admission to about 4,000 students for that incoming class of 2,000 students. We are also a common application exclusive school, so that is the one and only way to apply to Notre Dame. We also take the supplement very seriously, and I know this is going to bleed into the next kind of essay tips and all of that, but we are a holistic application review school. We are very, very closely reading every single application. So is Rob. So probably, many of us, and if not to some extent for scholarships and all that good stuff. But students especially, I always like to reinforce this because real people are reading these essays. As we're taking a long look at each of the application steps, the main things that we're looking at academically, of course, are going to be those ACT or SAT test scores. We will also take either. We will take the super score for the SAT, so students have good incentive to at least take the SAT twice. We'll take the best math and critical reading components. We do not require the writing sections of either test because we are spending so much time with those essays. The other areas, we're going to take a look very closely at your GPA and also your class rigor. So we would just in this situation look at the courses that were offered here at North Allegheny and then compare that to the courses you have decided to take. We're really looking for basically the most rigorous courses in those core subject areas of math, science, English, history, and foreign language. So we are really digging into that transcript, looking for strong academic performance, and then of course letters of recommendation, essays, and activities. So that does kind of go into some of the characteristics of the admitted student, but that's really what we're taking a look at as we're going through the application process. Again, the supplement portion is important. Let's see. Application deadlines, there we go. So the very first application deadline for Notre Dame is November 1st. We have a restrictive early action policy, which is a little bit different than a regular early action policy. Essentially, if any student is applying to a school's early decision, a binding program, which is not Notre Dame, we ask that you wait and apply to Notre Dame during regular decision. So that does throw kind of that extra layer. We like to see how well you can read fine print. I guess that's part of the application process too. So pay very close attention, really get to know your reps as you're coming up with your school list to know about all of these deadlines. We're also a little bit different in that we only encourage our strongest applicants to apply during the restrictive early action window. We see about 70 to 75% of our applications during the regular decision time period. So we're encouraging our very most competitive applicants to apply early so that we have a chance to see your 7th semester grades that first semester of senior year as we're making the final decision for the majority of our applicants. So hopefully that's a little bit of information for you to think on. Speaking on behalf of competitive and highly selective schools everywhere, I guess the only thing I can say to really kind of on behalf of everyone is to really read closely and to work closely with your counselors. You're very fortunate here because students go to tremendous schools every single year, go to a wide variety of schools, so your counselors have experience sending students all over the place, so lean on them, especially as you are looking closely through the admissions process.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Dilley, and I represent Washington and Jefferson College. We're a small, private, liberal arts and sciences college about an hour south of here in the city of Washington, Pennsylvania. I'd like to talk a little bit about, I'll start with our application process as well. In regards to the number of applications we get, it kind of keeps going down the line. Since we are small, we do receive about 7,500 applications per year. We accept around 3,000 students, so fairly selective, about 35 to 40% acceptance rate. Because we're a small school as well, we do also take a very holistic approach to reviewing applications. We certainly look at GPA and the rigor of your curriculum first and foremost. That's very important to us. But also out of all of the numbers of your GPA, your SAT, your ACT, your class rank, it's very important to us what you're going to contribute to our college community outside of the classroom as well. So we really look at your activities list, your jobs, your leadership experience, and we also certainly look at the personal statement as well, which we require. I know we're going to talk about that later too, but we definitely recommend spending a lot of time on it, being true to yourself in your personal statement. We also certainly recommend an on-campus interview. Since we do take a holistic approach, we want to get to know you outside of everything we already see as part of your application and what you're going to contribute to our college community, what you can bring to the classroom and outside of the classroom as well. So we really recommend that interview for any students interested in attending W&J. As far as our admission timelines, we do read in a rolling fashion. So around mid-September is when we start reviewing any applications that are completed at that time. So as your counselors mentioned, you can start very early with that process. No matter when a student applies, you will hear back with an admission decision within 3 weeks, and that's no matter when you apply. And that's doesn't have to be binding. You can apply early action. There are students who have already received their admission decisions because they have their application ready to go in mid-September. We do have an early action deadline of January 15th, as long as you complete your application by that point. Early decision is December 1st, and then regular admission is March 1st. Our application is all online as well, and we're also a member of the Common Application, and we do not require a supplement with the Common Application as well. I think that covers everything in the first part. Just speaking on behalf of private institutions in general, I think most would say they also approach admission in a very holistic nature. There are certain criteria that they look for academically, of course, but they really look at every other part of the application in addition to your personal statement in your interview. So it is very personalized. And they look at a variety of things in addition to the numbers. As far as other things relating to the application, we are a test optional school, so you have the option of not submitting your SAT or ACT scores as part of the admission process. If you choose to do so, you're not at any disadvantage for admission or scholarship consideration. If you feel that your SAT or ACT scores don't reflect what you're capable of as a student and what your GPA reflects you've accomplished in high school, it's certainly to your benefit to apply score optional, so we do have that option for applicants as well.
I'll pick gold. I am here from the University of Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh campus. My name is Brianne Donahue. It's good to be here. So the University of Pittsburgh is a state-related research institution. State-related meaning that while little funding, we do still get funding from the state of Pennsylvania. Therefore, Pennsylvania residents will receive that in-state discount. It's roughly about $10,000 less per year than an out-of-state student would be paying at the Pittsburgh campus. To mention, we also have 4 regional campuses in the Pitt system. So where I represent the Pittsburgh campus, we also have campuses 4 located in Bradford, or in Pennsylvania, in Bradford, Johnstown, Titusville, as well as Greensburg. So keep that in mind, we are a 5-system campus. As far as the timeline, we practice rolling admissions. So like the other institutions, we don't have early decision, early action. We are completely rolling admissions, which means that there is no deadline to apply. And we will continue to look at applicants throughout the fall into the spring of each academic year. As new information presents itself, new test scores, and we will never lock you into the system, meaning that if you were admitted as early as November, you have until the May 1st national filing deadline to let us know if you would like to attend the University of Pittsburgh. So you have plenty of time to make that decision. There is no specific deadlines to apply. I do recommend applying early. You can, show interest by applying early. We will let you know if we need additional information if you do apply early each year. But again, there is no deadline. The only deadline associated with applying each year would be January 15th. That is our recommended deadline for those that want to be considered for merit-based academic scholarships. Simply because once January rolls around, we have awarded a lot of scholarships, given admission to a lot of students. We want to make sure if you are deserving of such a scholarship, we have that funding still available. So that would be the only deadline that I would throw out to you, January 15th, apply by that time to be considered wholly for scholarships. But I recommend applying way before that January date. As your counselor was talking, Thanksgiving is a wonderful kind of date to try to get applications in for schools that do practice rolling admissions. I definitely agree with that. We are not a member of the Common Application. You will have to use Pitt-specific application. When you apply to the Pittsburgh campus, you will be evaluated for that campus first and foremost. You, of course, can apply directly to the Johnstown, the Greensburg, the Bradford, or the Ticeville campus. If a student is not admissible to the Pittsburgh campus, which is the most competitive of the 5, we will review that student for another option in that Pitt system. So that would be incorporated into the application process at the Pittsburgh campus. But some students would choose to apply directly to, let's say, the Greensburg campus, as an example, and you can do that as well. Excuse me. As far as what is required to apply, of course, the Pitt application, an application fee or a fee waiver, your final or your high school transcript up through 11th grade, and the SAT 1 or the ACT. We would look at either. We also do not consider the SAT 2s during the application process. We look at your high math and your high critical reading, and as we sit today, your high writing. Writing may go away in a year or two, but we still also require the writing score as during at least one writing sub-score during those times you take those exams. We also super score. We're always looking at your highest math, highest critical reading. If you take the ACT, that would equivalent to the highest English. So again, we're looking at the high math and high English, high writing from the ACT. And also, curriculum was brought up. That is really important at Pitt with being a competitive admissions environment, taking advanced placement, honors. I don't think North Allegheny offers international baccalaureate, but also college and high school courses. It helps you with the rigor of the college curriculum that you will undergo if you choose a competitive institution, but it also shows that you're challenging yourself and how you're competing in your environment, in your school, your graduating class. So taking those higher level courses is important. We look at weighted grade point average, specifically here at North Allegheny. We know your high school doesn't rank, so we look at that weighted grade point average. The other items such as essays, letters of recommendation, your activities list, resume, personal statement, you can send us a video of performance, your artwork, whatever you would like to send us that shows us more about you as a student, we highly welcome. We also take a holistic approach to our admissions. At Pitt, again today, all of those supplemental items are completely optional. However, like I recommend applying early, I also recommend sending in those pieces of information because we would like to know more about you aside from your academic background. We had talked a lot about, I know the question was about letters of recommendation. I would recommend 1 to 3, no more than 3. Don't kill your counselors with asking for letters of recommendation. It's really about finding people that write you a letter to tell us about you, people that know you well. And it can be a teacher, it can be a guidance counselor, but it can also be a coach, it can be a boss, it can be someone in your church. It's really about someone that knows you well, knows your character, and can tell us more about you if we don't have the pleasure of meeting you and learning that from your transcript, your test scores, of course. Meeting you, that's another thing. So like a lot of large schools, we also do not conduct an interview as part of the admissions process. However, communication is key. communicating with the admissions office at the large school, showing interest by visiting campus. I highly recommend visiting campus. That's a way to show interest. But sending in that supplemental information for us to get to know you that way is highly recommended and important. So at Pitt, I know I'm going a little more specific, there's 4 freshman entry-level programs that you can apply to. At Pitt, it's the Dietrich School of Arts and Sciences, engineering, business, or nursing. One of the things we were asked to talk about was curriculum. So of course the standard college prep curriculum is what you want to be taking, but also challenging yourself with honors advanced placement. If you're interested in applying to the engineering school at Pitt, make sure you're taking chemistry and physics at some point before graduation. We want to see chemistry and physics on your transcript, as well as up to trigonometry or pre-calculus. Calculus even better, but it's not required. For the business school, we also like to see up to a trigonometry or pre-calculus course. For nursing, definitely taking biology and chemistry. 3 years of a lab science is required. So I know there's a lot of freshmen, sophomores, juniors sitting in the room thinking about next year, the following year's curriculum. So keep that in mind as you're applying to some of those specific schools. And again, I highly recommend visiting campus with a lot of the large research competitive schools, visiting campus and keeping communication with those admissions officers and those admissions reps are highly recommended to help you through this process. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Megan McHugh. I'm Assistant Director of Admissions at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. A lot of us refer to it as IUP, so for sake of time, we'll call it IUP tonight. IUP is a public, state-owned university in Pennsylvania. There are 14 schools within the Pennsylvania state system of higher education. We're the second largest of those 14. We have just over 14,000 students at IUP. One of the things that has been recently created with the state system is a common application. So we are not part of the common application that has been referred to tonight on the panel, but we are part of the common application within the PASHE system, within those 14 state schools in Pennsylvania. So for instance, if you were applying to IUP, you can access our online application on our website, but at the completion of our application, it will ask you if you're interested in applying to any of the 13 other state schools in Pennsylvania. It will make it a much easier process for you if you're interested in applying to Clarion or Westchester, Lock Haven, any of the other schools within the state system of higher education. We do have a rolling admissions process at IUP, so similar to Pitt, we do not have early decision or early action, we do rolling admission. Our application becomes available for students in July before their senior year, and we begin reviewing applications on September 1st of a student's senior year, and will continue to review applications throughout the academic year. We also work with the May 1st national selection deadline. So students can apply throughout their senior year, but keeping in mind that they have to make their decision by May 1st of their senior year. So again, we encourage an earlier application. We also have a scholarship program, and we interview students for scholarships in early December. So we do again encourage students to apply early in their senior year, and we will be inviting students to come onto our campus for an interview for scholarships if they have been admitted to the university by October 31st. So that's a little bit earlier than the Thanksgiving deadline that most are encouraging. But if you want to be considered for scholarships, because they are pretty selective at our institution, we would encourage an early application, again, by the end of October 31st for one of our scholarship programs. We also have an honors college at IUP, so when you complete our application, it will ask you if you're also interested in applying to our honors college. We do not have essay or letters of recommendation as a requirement. They're optional for our application, But for our honors college application, there are supplemental essay questions that are required for the student to complete. I think I'm good, yeah. I'm sure others will be added to that as we continue. So we're going to talk a little bit about characteristics of an admitted student, and I think this kind of elaborates a little bit more on what we already started.
Yes, and so talk about characteristics, probably also talk a little bit about financial aid as well, just to keep it moving along. And since some of us we've covered a little bit about those characteristics, and since it looks like there's a lot of questions out there, making sure that we're getting to those. I think one of the great things with the schools that we have up here is that if you're competitive for our schools, you're going to be competitive for many other schools. So I always challenge students, really, what's that top school that you're looking at? Make sure that you're competitive for them. And probably don't start a conversation with a college rep like I had a mom last night at Pierce Township, a college fair. Probably like Pierce Township, Rob, yeah, you don't need to tell us anymore. But it was better high school visits when I make fun of other schools. But a mom's like, so does a student have to take a foreign language? As in, does a high school student have to take a foreign language? And I'm smiling on the outside, but in my mind I'm like, I don't know if this conversation is really going to go that well. Because we want students challenging themselves, and part of that's taking a foreign language. And what we're looking for is, at Ohio State, is students taking at least 2 years of the same foreign language. And most students who we have applying who are being admitted have at least 3 years of a foreign language. With math, we require math only through Algebra 2 at the bare minimum. I can tell you that there's not a lot of students who are being admitted who only have that level of math, who only have 3 units of math, that most students have, at the very least through pre-calculus and stats. A lot of students are taking calc and taking the AP classes. That we want to see students challenging themselves because we want to make sure that you're going to come to our schools and be successful. I agree with Brianne on letters of recommendation, no more than 3. Ohio State, we only require 1. I always tell students, don't send in more than 2 or 3 because I'm one of the people who has to read them. And it just makes my job a lot easier if I don't have to read 8 letters of recommendation. That makes me really sad. In terms of sort of looking at where students are at, the middle 50% range for the SAT, if you're looking at Ohio State, is a 1210 to 1360. That's off of the critical reading and math. For the ACT, it's a 27 to a 31. We don't have any easy GPA statistics to give. We give most of it out as class rank, which I know that North Allegheny doesn't use class rank. So I just went back and looked at data for North Allegheny, and it looked like most competitive students who were admitted had a 3.85 or higher on the weighting scale here. We did admit students with lower GPAs, but most competitive students from the academic perspective had a 3.85 or higher. We, as I said, are looking for students to take a challenging curriculum. One thing to check too when it comes to AP tests is that some schools do award credit for students who score at a certain level on the AP test. In Ohio, all of our public schools, we award credit for a score of 3 or higher. That's going to change by school, and that's going to change by state. Like to see activities. As I like to say, we're looking for the quality activities. I don't really care if you're involved in 20 activities. That's great, but really, where do you have that leadership? Where are you an active member? Are you volunteering? Are you working? Looking for that quality. With an essay, what makes a good essay? Telling a personal story. And there's a lot of ways that this can go very well, and there's a lot of ways that this can go very bad. So I always like to see strong technical writing, so using paragraphs, proper spelling, grammar, that strong technical point of view. One of my favorite essays that we had a couple of years ago was a student who was talking about his love for bacon. And he was so happy to be coming to Ohio State because he was getting away from his little brother who always stole and ate all of his bacon. And that made him really sad. And then he implored us not to admit his little brother to Ohio State, so that his little brother would not come to Ohio State and once again steal all of his bacon. That was a fun essay that also went really well. One that went very poorly, but it did entertain the admission staff immensely. So that's always one of the positives to some bad essays. Very bad essay, but we were greatly entertained, is maybe if you're talking about your experience in Flag Corps and making it sound like you're a stripper. That's a bad essay. Kind of misses the mark. We were highly entertained. That one got shared in the office. But I think it's sort of those points that make a good essay. Another one that, just to sort of cover, is that I had a student this year, this was actually a very recent essay that I read, a student who was talking about her background and how she had no one at home who was pushing her. And so it was really up to her to do that. And that's why it took her longer to take AP classes and take those more challenging classes. And everything that she had to do, that her parents had her when they were very young, and how it was basically her mom who raised her. So even though her dad had gone to college, she was coming basically almost from this first generation background and from a mom who academically wasn't pushing her, and so how she had to discover this drive herself. It was something that was complemented by her letter of recommendation. So it wasn't just the student saying this, but also in her letter of recommendation. But one that I thought was a very powerful essay and certainly had a lot of impact on the decision. Moving into talking about financial aid, going to an out-of-state school, whether it's private or public, is going to cost more. Public schools out of state are going to cost more. Ohio State, we're about $26,000 a year. As I said, our early action deadline earlier for priority consideration for our merit-based aid is November 1st. Last year, if a student completed their application after November 1st, regardless of academic ability level, those students did not receive any financial aid. So I had a student who was number 2 in their class, 35 on the ACT. They're like, hey Rob, I want financial aid. I'm like, you completed in December. No. Like, Rob, I'm an awesome student. I'm like, I know, I really want you to come here. They're like, so you're gonna give me money? No. And it went on like that for a while until we finally just settled on the fact that he wasn't getting any merit-based aid. But it is important. We do have a scholarship specifically for non-Ohio residents. And I think that that's important to check with schools because we all do scholarships differently and award them differently. We also do have need-based aid available. With that, that's where you would need to submit the FAFSA. Ohio State's priority deadline for the FAFSA is February 15th. So even if you don't have your tax information back yet, still submitting a FAFSA, estimating off of your previous year's taxes to make sure that you're getting that information in. And so that we can consider you for as much financial aid as possible. We send out our financial aid information, and I'm guessing a lot of the other schools do financial aid packages sometime in March. We tend to be end of March, beginning of April. So that way that you have about a month until that May 1st deadline to know how much I'm going to be paying if I choose to attend Ohio State. That's a lot of the information I have. Oh, just one other thing, we do not super score on the ACT or the SAT. We'll take your best composite score from any single test date. I think that's it.
Okay, so for the University of Notre Dame, being a Catholic institution, we do tend to focus a lot on our mission as well as we're going through that holistic review. So when we are looking at a student's information, as I mentioned before, we have kind of those 6 different things that we're taking a look at. What is going to help a student within that process is going to be specifically in the non-academic review, within the essays, within the leadership and the commitment that we see. We like to say we like to see a well-lopsided student, so maybe not that the student has joined every single club, but has really shown some leadership. So whether you're a treasurer, you're a president, you're a captain, regardless of what you're spending your time doing, even if it is working after school, if you have family responsibilities, please use the application to advocate for yourself. I will also mention in the common application, and this really would go for all schools, there's a box that you can add additional info. Sometimes that resume section is a little tricky. It's hard to quantify the amount of hours that you've spent within an activity. Perhaps the school eliminated an activity you were planning on being a leader in. Please provide us with as much information as possible. We want to be able to give you the benefit of the doubt to really learn what it is that you're involved in. So please put forward as much information as you can through that. As far as letters of recommendation, I will echo the 2 are required, 3, that's fine. We once had a student send in 84. So we really like to draw the line. That shows you will accept as many as you send us. If you know a Notre Dame alumni, if there's any alumni in the room, go Irish, right? But we know that we are passionate, right? Our alumni, our Notre Dame family is passionate. They're ready to support you students through in any way, but just kindly say, say a prayer for me, right? Don't need a letter of recommendation. So just keep that in mind. To answer the recommendation letter question about why junior or senior year, we're really looking more specifically at those core subjects and would like to see junior or senior year to reflect the student's progress in a more challenging course, not necessarily, so if it is a stronger relationship you have with the teacher from an earlier year, maybe that would be a good situation to submit a 3rd letter. But that's really what we're mainly focusing on, is one of those core subject areas and hearing from that teacher in that core subject area. As far as our class profile, it's tremendously competitive, right? We have some fantastic, amazing students. About 89% of our students were within the top 10% of their class. About 48% of those students were within the top 2% of their class, so we're certainly seeing those go-getters academically. But again, I will kind of fall back on the essays. We're also looking to kind of fill in our class with students who will continue to really do the good work that our current students are doing. So to give you an idea, about 90% of our current Notre Dame students are active in community service. So take a guess. We'd love to see students who are really active and pursuing community service or showing an interest in that. So get to know the school, see if you would be a good fit as much as we're looking at you as potentially a good fit for our institution. And let's see, quick essay tips. Don't focus as much on actually answering the question. This is not like trivia where you're up and trying to submit the best answer to a question. Rather, maybe make a list of things that you really want to communicate to the schools you're applying to, and then see how you can feed that in through those different prompts. For example, one of our questions this year was inspired by the Magic School Bus. So we actually invite students to take us on your ideal intellectual field trip. There is no right answer to that, right? Ms. Frizzle, no limit. So we really hope that students are sharing their personality through that quick 150 or 200 word supplement short answer. And then I would also say one common mistake that we see students making is that they pour their heart and soul into the common application essay, the big, long 500 to 600 word essay, and when it comes to our supplement portions, we're not quite sure if it was the same author, right? They're maybe not spending as much time in detail, and we appreciate the Common App essays, but we really love the ones that we come up with on our own. We really love those questions. So we want to continue to urge you to, pursue or continue persist, I guess, through that whole essay writing area, and then of course proofread.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I forgot financially. Oh no. So really quickly, two quick facts about Notre Dame. We're one of 66 schools in the country that agree to meet 100% of a family's financial need. So as we're looking at the FAFSA information, also the CSS profile, which digs even deeper, many private schools will use this, takes a closer look specifically at your financial information. So we will match up to 100% of the student's need. And then the second thing is we are need blind in the admission process. So we will not review your financial information as we're making those admission decisions.
Thank you again. That's okay. I'll talk a little bit about our admission profile so you know the basics of what an accepted student looks like at W&J for this past year. Again, as I said, we do look at your GPA and your curriculum first and foremost. The average GPA for an accepted student for W&J for this past year was a 3.4. And again, that's not a specific cutoff, that's an average, and that's unweighted. We do look at your unweighted GPA. We also highly consider the rigor of your curriculum, any, again, AP, college and high school courses that you may be taking. We do accept AP scores of at least a 4 for credit, and the psychology department at W&J accepts a 5 or higher, so they're a little bit more competitive. Every department thinks they're the greatest, right? It's like, it's a really, really amazing program. Also in relation to just other basic requirements in your academic courses, we also require at least 2 years of the same foreign language. Also to give you a sense of our just averages for SAT and ACT, mid 50% for SAT is 1070 to 1290, just again on critical reading and math. ACT, the mid 50% is 23 to 28, and again we're also score optional if you decide to go that route as well. In addition to the academic information, of course, as we've been saying, the personal statement is super important, and we do read them, and we look at them, so spend a lot of time on it. Our application, we don't have specific prompts. You can write about anything that you would like. As I mentioned as well, we do accept artwork, films, any other supplemental information you'd like to submit, which is fantastic. Also, the common application does have some specific prompts. If you are kind of stuck and just looking for ideas, that might be a good place to start. But again, every school will be a little bit different with what they look at in a personal statement. We only require 1 letter of recommendation from a teacher or a counselor, but additional ones are highly encouraged. We don't have a preference of whether it's someone who has known you specifically in your junior or senior year. It can be really just the person who knows you best and can comment best on your academic ability, but who you are as a person and what you've achieved throughout high school. So if it is someone that you first met freshman or sophomore year, we definitely recommend making sure it's someone that you've kept in touch with and they're aware of your current academic achievements as well. Just some other tips I'll offer on the personal statement too. I think how to get started is the toughest part. So I always recommend maybe starting with, what do I enjoy? And that can be so many different things for every student. I think the best essays that we've read in our office are the ones that are authentic. And I think they're easy to write because they're things that you enjoy. They're things you do every day that you've been involved with throughout your life. So that might be a best starting point for you as well. But definitely get specific. We read thousands and thousands of essays from people who are the captain of their volleyball team or they're the president of student government, and that's fantastic. But you want to get more in-depth with that so we can recognize, yes, you're the student government president who has done this. Here's how it has affected you, how it's affected your school. So what you may be interested in may be very broad and apply to a lot of students, but your specific experience is what makes you unique. So definitely talk about that in your personal statement if you decide to go that route. As far as financial aid goes, our total cost is about $52,000. That includes tuition, room and board, and student fees. Don't panic. Don't let the sticker price scare you of any school that you're looking at. Our average financial aid package for this past year was $33,500, and that's combining, of course, merit-based aid from scholarships, grants, loans, and work study. 80% of that is just scholarships, grants, and work study, the good stuff that you don't have to pay back. So that's about 80% of that package. We do offer merit-based scholarships for all accepted students. They automatically go through that selection process, so there's no extra application, and there's no deadline to be eligible for scholarships. Again, we consider students for scholarships on a rolling fashion. So as soon as you're accepted, you're automatically considered. So the pot doesn't run out essentially. You're still considered in the same way in February for a merit-based scholarship decision as you would if you applied in October. And over 80% of, or actually over 90% of students receive some form of a merit-based scholarship, and the average is about $15,800 for a scholarship. I also want to briefly mention our Good Neighbor program, because it's a scholarship just for students who live and go to school in Southwest PA, including Allegheny County. For this year, the cutoffs to be eligible for the Good Neighbor Award, you have to have at least a 3.6 GPA. Again, that's on an unweighted scale. A minimum SAT score of an 1100 or 24 ACT. Or if you apply score optional, simply a 3.6 GPA. And you have to be eligible for the Pennsylvania State Grant Program, the FIA grant, which the FAFSA will determine your eligibility for that grant. If you meet all three criteria, we meet 100% of demonstrated financial need for the family. And again, that's just for students in Southwest PA.
Okay, the profile of an admitted Pitt student. So I didn't mention before, we receive about 30 applications annually. We admit roughly 16,000, about 59% of those students. And our freshman class this past year was about 3,887. So those 3,800 students, they had the middle 50% of the SAT range was a 1220 to a 1450. And the GPA average was a 3.99, so obviously that's on a weighted scale. At North Allegheny, we receive a lot of applications, a lot of students from North Allegheny. Around a 3.6, 3.7 will make you competitive for admission to the Pittsburgh campus. For scholarships, more close to like a 4.1 grade point average at North Allegheny will make you competitive for scholarship admission. About 59% of our admitted class were in the top 10% of their high school graduating class. So of course that reciprocates to a weighted grade point average with those two figures. My advice for writing an essay, here's an example of a bad essay. My dream is to attend Penn State University. Make sure that you are editing if you're sending a similar essay to multiple institutions. That is really hard to get over. So make sure you are triple checking all of your essays. Pitt has 3 short answer questions on our website that we recommend students to complete and submit, and just like some of the other representatives were explaining, it's how you can convey about you through that prompt. So there's a couple really short answer questions that we try to have fun with. It's kind of like a tweet. It's only 140 characters, so that won't take you long. Can be very creative. And then there's a longer essay that talks about, describe a time when an incident was working against you. How did you overcome that? What did you learn from it? So instead of really looking at that question, think about what you want to convey to us and see if you can do that through those short answer questions. You do not have to do the short answer questions. If you have another essay that you have written or you would like to submit, that is completely fine. Languages in Pitt, if you have 3 years of the same language in high school, you exempt the Pitt requirement of 2 semesters. So if you're considering taking Spanish 3, or German 3, your senior year, that actually exempts you from doing that coursework at Pitt if you never want to see Spanish again. So keep that in mind. It's not a requirement to get in, but 3 years of the same language in high school, and that can even start in 8th grade, as long as it's on your high school transcript, will exempt you from that Pitt requirement. Some other differences also with the FAFSA that you can complete starting January 1st of each year. You have to complete that every year you're in college. And then our priority deadline is March 1st. For seniors, that would be next March of 2015. And then we will also send your financial aid package towards the end of March, and so you will know before that May 1st commitment deadline. There's a really good piece in the back that I put. It also, there's the Pitt profile of the admitted students. There's a value piece talking about value and what that means when looking at bottom line costs. Again, I want to mimic, don't omit a college from your list until you see that bottom line. After all financial aid, all scholarships are applied to that cost of attendance to see what is your out-of-pocket cost and your bottom line. Make sure you're working with financial aid offices, admissions counselors to know exactly what would you be paying to go to that institution to make your final decisions.
Thank you. The most important thing that IUP looks at in an admitted student or a student we're considering is the high school transcript. I've been working in admissions for 13 years now, and I can tell you that every high school is different. The high school transcripts across the board look very different. So the most important thing we do is look course by course and grade that students have received in those courses. So it's the most important thing we look at. Our average student admitted to IUP is a 3.2 GPA, and that's a weighted GPA that we're looking at. We do super score the SAT. We also super score the ACT. Our average SAT is a 1020, and we're looking at the math and critical reading. We're not using the writing section. And our average ACT is a 21 composite. We don't require the essay, so I know several have talked about what they're looking for in terms of an essay. I talked a little bit earlier about the Sutton Scholars Program, our scholarship program in December. So those the information that's optional, like letters of recommendation or personal essays that you can include with your application to IUP, we will utilize for scholarship review. So it may not be the most important factor we're looking at when we admit students, like the high school transcript, the SAT and ACTs are, but we can utilize that information when we're reviewing students for either admission to the honors college or for scholarship consideration. A full year at IUP is around $20,000. That's tuition, fees, room and board. And again, we do ask students to complete the free application for federal student aid to determine grants, loans, but scholarships at IUP are awarded based on merit. So students are automatically considered based on being an admitted student to the university. We're looking at strong GPA from high school and strong SATs. And for the Sutton Scholars Program that I talked about, again, you have to be admitted by the end of October, and then we're looking at very high academic students to invite them to campus for the required interview for that scholarship option. That scholarship would be $2,000 renewable, so it could be a maximum of $8,000 that can be applied to all 4 years of your cost of tuition.
All right, thank you so much for all that information. As we collected your questions, it seems that you've answered a lot of them already, which is kind of great. But before we get into that, last year we had 100 copies of handouts made, and we actually needed 200. So this year we made 200 copies of everything, and we still need more this year. So if you did not get a packet that was in the back, we do have a sign up here. If you would just put your student's name and their grade, we will get the packet to them as soon as we can. But we apologize. We thought we were covering our bases by making 200 copies, and we still had more come, which is wonderful. We're glad about the turnout for sure. So reps, one of the questions that we get as counselors every year, and somebody asked again tonight, is would you rather see a B in an honors or an AP class, or an A in an academic level class? B in an honors class. We're an A in the honors or AP. We are actually, October 23rd is the deadline for dropping a level in classes. So right now we're having a lot of panicked students. They're saying, I'm getting a B in an honors class and I want to drop down to academic, and we're trying to let them weigh all their options before they make that final call.
I guess one thing I would say is just keep in mind that we do have the school profile, and I would encourage everyone to take a look at a copy of the school profile, especially for the younger students. That will really familiarize you with what college reps see when we're learning about the school and starting your application review. And so when I see that X amount of AP classes are available, here's the maximum that a student could potentially take. If I see a few of them, but then maybe it drops off, or whatever the situation is, I know that they're out there. It makes me then question, well, why didn't the student want to continue taking the AP course, or why wasn't this continued? Sometimes we'll reach out to the counselors, or they would mention it in the letter. We know that we're also telling you to be present of everything and do all this crazy other stuff, and something has to give, right? But the academic part, that has to come first, I know, at least for us, and we really would rather see you challenging yourself there, and it is all going to pay off. You are going to go to college and be better prepared for it.
when you're Ohio State, we're also looking at what opportunities that you have and thinking about what other students at the school are doing. And when we're not admitting somebody, it's not because we don't think that you can be academically successful at Ohio State. We know that most of the students who we deny can come to Ohio State and do very well, but we're looking for those best students. And so does dropping one AP or honors class hurt? Probably not, but if there's more in there, it can certainly raise questions and really link students to take the most challenging curriculum that you can be successful in, because it is looking at how you're taking advantage of the opportunities that are available to you.
Thank you. Just for everyone's information, our school profile is located on our website, and I would encourage you to look at it. It tells you what the GPAs, what percentage of the class, even though we don't rank, it can tell you where the GPAs fall in the rank of the class. And the school profile is always from the class before, but that is what we send to the reps to look at. But it'll also show you the average SAT scores, the average ACT scores of North Allegheny compared nationally. So it's a lot of information for you to look through, so we would encourage you to look at that.
Just on the question, I love the answers that they gave. I think they're really good. We get to see students, I have a particular student right now that candidate bumped into 3 APs and is not doing very well. I challenge her to challenge herself at her level. And one of the important things about knowing who you are is knowing what your level is. You know, we play sports, some of us play sports, and those of us that played football in high school wanted to play in the pros. But the selection process kind of caught us, you know. So, you know, we strive to get there. When you're taking these APs and you start into it, you know, if you're struggling every year, and we see some things for students moving up from our intermediate school to our high school, every month, a certain number of people kind of level off. And that's okay. You know, it's sometimes hard to accept the fact that you can't achieve what that 4.5 or 4.6 kid is doing. You need to know yourself. And, you know, we see a lot of heartbroken kids come in, like, I have 4 APs, and I thought I was going to be able to do it, but I can't. And we have kids that are consistently not dropping down levels. So when you make the decision to take an AP, remember, you know, try to know what your level is. You need to know where your level is so you can know where to go. Sometimes we overachieve and try too much, and then we get bumped way back down. So I don't know if this is making sense to you, but the students that I see, many of them achieve somehow 5 and 6 APs, and it's just a smooth sail. If that was their level, that's where they needed to be. But some students look at their friends taking that 5 and 6 APs, and again, these guys want to see that, but they start hitting these little bumps, and then the bumps get bigger and bigger. You guys know when you get an AP class, if you're down in your first quarter, the next 3 quarters are going to be harder probably. So that's where we're talking to counselors, parents, you know, and other people that have knowledge come in, that we can make some decisions. And, you know, we'd love everybody to be able to go to Notre Dame and the other higher-ranked schools, but some of our students aren't ready for that. They need to know that college is great for everybody. All the colleges out there are good, and that we need to find our level. So it's important to find out what level you're at and not try to look at what everybody else is doing, because this is such a competitive good school that everybody wants to be at that top level. There are levels for a reason, so if you look again at our profile, look and see where you stand, picking your school will be a little bit easier because you'll be able to pick the right classes and be able to be successful.
Brianne, I heard you mention that you like to have 3 years of a language. We had a lot of questions about what do you all want as far as how many years of a language? And then someone also asked, do you count American Sign Language as a foreign language?
We do count American Sign Language as a foreign language, and as I said, while we require 2, most students we see are taking at least 3, and unlike Pitt, the only way you're going to get out of a foreign language is with AP credit, or if you're taking any college classes while in high school, we would award credit at Ohio State if you send us those transcripts.
Love to see the language as well. Students who especially are going into the humanities within our College of Arts and Letters, we are going to definitely be looking for 3 to 4 years of language, specifically if the student is showing interest in that. And then I would just encourage everyone to really hang in there with the language. Probably one of my biggest regrets is that I went through high school, took language in college as well, and I wish that I would have really persevered. I think that makes you a competitive student in life, not just through this admissions process.
consider American Sign Language as a modern language, or if you take it in high school, we do require at least 2 years of the same modern language. And we really emphasize we require you to take 2 years of the same is because we do have a language requirement at W&J. So taking at least 2 years in high school prepares you for that requirement. We do have a language placement test that all students take prior to coming to W&J. If you test into the introductory level, you have to take 2 semesters of a language while a student at W&J. Intermediate level, just 1 semester. If you have extensive knowledge of a language, you can test out of our language requirement, and you won't have to take a language at W&J.
Yes, we also look at American Sign Language as a foreign language exemption for college at Pitt because we have foreign language as an area of study at the University of Pittsburgh. And a lot of these questions are really specific to you and the colleges you're interested in, so make sure you just, like your counselor was saying, know yourself, but also research a lot of these schools because these are such specific questions to you and these institutions, so keep that in mind.
At IUP, about 45 of our academic majors are going to require a 3-semester of a language at the university. And we also do placement testing in foreign language. So 3 years of a language in high school is definitely going to help you. 4 years is even better. But you will take that placement exam when you get to IUP if your major is one of our majors that will require that. So we have 6 different academic colleges. Anybody in the College of Humanities at IUP and anyone in the College of Natural Science and Mathematics will be required to have a 3-semester foreign language. They can be exempt from that if they do well in the placement exam or if they come in with any AP or college and high school credit in that language.
The next question, we had some people ask about leadership, possibilities, and the extent of leadership. The basic question is, if a student is engaged in a lot of things and does not have an opportunity to show leadership, is that a detriment to the college process?
I'll go first. I think that you can show your character in many different ways, and leadership is just one of those. Leadership is great. We'd like to see leaders at the University of Pittsburgh on our campus. However, you can show your character, what you can bring to the institution in many different ways. So if you weren't able to grab that student organization at North Allegheny that exemplifies leadership, however, you play a sport, those characteristics that incorporate having to be in a team and playing a sport shows a lot about your character. So there's other ways, and that is okay if it doesn't hone in on leadership. As long as you are involved, that is big. So show us how you're involved in your community, in your school, however that, kind of comes forth with you.
This is for the state schools. The question is, do they all have the same application guidelines, deadlines, and requirements?
All have the same application deadlines and
Guidelines.
requirements. We do not. So we do have the same common application now, and we all are rolling admissions with a May 1st deadline, but each institution is going to have different requirements, different GPA, SAT requirements that they're looking for. None of the state system schools are using the writing section, so we are all similar in terms of looking at the high school transcript as the most important factor and requiring the SAT or the ACT for consideration. But again, each institution is going to have different requirements. And we do, and I think maybe that would be the same with a lot of the universities up here, we also have different requirements for some of our majors. So you will find that at each of the individual state schools as well. So we are one of the few state schools that has a nursing program, and we do have a specific GPA SAT requirement for a major like nursing. So you want to check with each of the institutions to find out what they're specifically looking for, maybe as their averages, but also for certain programs what they require.
Thank you. This is for Pitt and Ohio State. If not admitted to a main campus, how likely is it to go to a branch and then transfer into Maine?
For Ohio State, for somebody from Pittsburgh, not likely. And that's because the way our regional campus system's set up is it's not conducive for success for non-Ohio residents. Columbus campus is our first and largest campus. Newark, Ohio has our next largest campus with about 2,500 students, and they only have a couple hundred beds for housing. So they just don't have the support services there to really allow students to be successful. So our regional campuses are really for Ohio residents. If a out-of-state student accidentally applies to a regional campus, we actually call them up and be like, are you sure? You really want to go to Lima, Ohio? Wonderful city. But do you really want to go to Lima, Ohio? Because they don't have the services there. So for a student who's not admitted to Ohio State to the Columbus campus as a freshman, we would ask as a non-resident that you still want to pursue that Ohio State degree, that you start at another institution, complete a year's worth of coursework, and then you would reapply as a sophomore as a transfer student.
For Pitt, it's highly likely. A lot of students will spend 4 years at one of the four-year campuses, or they can relocate is what it would be called. So it is really dependent upon your area of study. Arts and sciences, business, engineering, and nursing do have different relocation requirements in terms of how many credits they want to see completed from the regional campus. It's either going to be 1 year or 2 years. Arts and sciences likes to see 2 years, nursing, engineering, and business 1 year, with specific college level curriculum as well, and a 3.0 grade point average at that regional campus. You are admitted to the Pittsburgh campus. It's very black and white, transferring, relocating. It's a less competitive platform when you're not competing with 30,000 other applicants for a spot for 3,800 students. So it's very black and white, specific requirements to relocate, and that's a path for a lot of students.
This is an SAT question. The college will see all the SAT scores. That's taken multiple times. Score reports usually have the scores on it, so unless you request a score to not go in, the scores are going to go in. So I don't think it's held against you. Most of the places do super scores, so they'll see the best scores of each test. As far as taking the PSAT, 2 times off will be sophomore year and junior year. The sophomore year is okay to take. It's probably a good idea to take it to get practice at the practice test. The junior year is definitely, for us, required so that the student will have that pre-test before they get into the first SATs. And the last one was, if you take the SAT 3 times, when should you start the test? Mrs. Wachowski said January. I agree January is a good starting of junior year, but I also think that March is also good. I like March a little bit better because it gives them a little bit more time to work. Maybe if they're doing some type of an SAT prep program. By the way, the prep programs are good. They're not all equal, so we don't profess or back any particular program. But if you want to be good at something, getting that head started is a good thing. So if you have the ability to take a prep class, take it. But the work that the student put in is much more important. We have students that do very well on SAT with tutors, sometimes together in a group, working on things. Again, having the PSAT is good because you get the questions, you get to answer them, and do some work on that. So for the people looking at PSAT and taking SATs, we like January. March is okay of junior year. We'd like to see possibly another one before the school year's over if the first one wasn't sufficient. And again, we talked about in the senior year, we don't really want to see much testing, but there's usually an ACT offered in September, and then SAT in October. That's pretty much the drop dead time to get your testing done.
The Pitt-specific question. What's the difference between the Hail to Pitt and the general Pitt application?
So the Hail to Pitt application offers an expedited admissions decision. We try to promise you a turnaround in 3 weeks, getting back to you, whether that's requesting a senior SAT, mid-year senior grades, an admissions decision. We like to give that expedited process back to you. Priority consideration for some of the other perks, the honors college, freshman guarantees, the graduate school scholarships. The regular application also gives these same benefits. It's just, we try to get through the Hail to Pitt applications quicker because we expedited that offer in the summer. That was something we communicated with students starting in the summer. So those are the students where we're trying to get to first in our rolling admissions. They're very similar applications with very similar benefits.
You just reminded me of something. Oftentimes, we have students apply to Pitt, and they said, well, they have an optional essay. We always say, if it says it's optional, do it. If anything says optional, we really would encourage you all to do anything that says optional, because it just gives them another piece of information about you. Yes?
I was going to say one thing to add to that is a lot of times once students are denied, because that's a reality of applying to colleges, is being denied, we get, at least Ohio State, I'm going to assume it's true for the other schools here as well, we get a lot of phone calls from families who are very unhappy with the decision that we made. And one of the questions they ask is, well, can I send this information? And if it's not 7th semester grades, if it's not some new academic information, my response is, why didn't you include it originally? Why didn't you put your best foot forward originally? New letters of recommendation. Well, we're hoping that you send in your best letters of recommendation originally. I didn't put this activity. Why? Think of the application as your interview. Most of us up here don't do interviews. Even for those of us who do, we want to make sure that you're taking the application seriously. Don't turn in something after we've told you no. Turn everything in that you want us to look at that first time.
Now, we offer some college and high school classes here where students can take a class in high school and get college credit for it. Do all of you accept those, or does it vary from school to school? Thumbs up? Thumbs down? All right. So most do. We'll leave that highly selective Notre Dame out of this. I think you covered, we did have a lot of questions about, what GPA are you looking for, what ACT, what SAT score are you looking for? I feel like you all have said that, so I don't think we have to go into that anymore. What about subject tests? How many of you need subject tests? The SAT subject tests are typically needed for Tier 1 or Ivy League schools. Those are the ones that are looking for those subject tests. Okay, this is for Mr. Reed. You spoke about applying early to be eligible for merit aid. Do most schools consider aid based on the application, or as an additional form specifically to be considered for merit aid needed?
For us, for merit-based aid, we're looking at the information that's submitted with the application. So we're, specifically for most of our merit-based scholarships, we're looking at your GPA and test scores. Some of them do require an additional essay, and because we like to make things complicated, there are a number of different scholarships out there that can't have it in accordance with November 1, but we're looking at the information there on the application. It's automatic consideration. The need-based aid is going to be based off of FAFSA, but it's really based off of the information that comes in by November 1, and it's really the academic information. So hopefully that answers the question.
The last question we're going to have on somebody has something really, really good. It was just about activities, whether students are having activities and say they get to 11th grade, they find an activity that they want to do, but it may kind of cut off something else. Is it best to have activities that are long run or more activities, I guess, and making a decision to do a new activity? Would that mess up kind of their profile on what they were doing up to that point?
So I would just say follow your heart, right? So there's no magic list of activities. I guess what I was trying to allude to earlier with kind of being well lopsided is that, we can kind of see through maybe if there's Spanish club, French club, all these extra clubs that you're probably spending maybe an hour a month, right, on, but maybe something that you do run into junior year ends up being something that you're the very most passionate about. Especially for the younger students, these clubs and organizations, sports, work activities, this is like the real life material that you're going to wrap back around to in those essays. So it kind of doubles as true reference points for you along the way as well. So do what you love, because at the end of the day, you're not trying to get into the college so that you can tweet it out and say, hey friends, look where I'm going to school. You actually have to move there and live there and be successful and take advantage of every resource available on campus. So don't do it for us, do it for you.
Some of you asked very, very specific questions, like for specific majors and such. What we would ask you to do is if you could talk with your school counselor or come on down. We're going to wrap up now, but if you wanted to ask somebody specifically something that you had, please take this opportunity to do that. But your school counselors can certainly help you with anything very specific to your needs. I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I hope this was beneficial for you. If you would please take some time to fill out the evaluation form and leave it at the table as you leave, that will certainly help us plan for next year. Thanks so much. And thanks to our reps.